Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. We're going to be ranking the melee DPS in PvP in 9.0.5, a new and recent patch, which has provided some changes to specializations, and some underdog specs got some love. But is it going to be enough love that they are truly top contenders when it comes to the upper echelons of the 3v3 ladder? Well, we're going to find out in this ranking video, and hopefully my microphone doesn't sound totally awful the second time around. I don't know why it did that to me, but this time around it should be working. So let's just get started here. We're going to be looking at Arms Warrior, and right off the bat, I think that this is a very easy one to rank. S tier specialization. Why is this? Good damage, good defense, good utility, good mobility, no inherent weakness to the specialization currently. It's a specialization that almost any composition can pivot around. Pretty much everyone wants to play with you, and I think this is the main reason why it comes in at the S tier spot currently. And it now has 4 options for covenants that are all spectacular and amazing. Its damage output as Venthyr is enormous. I think that it goes without saying, really, that S tier is sort of Arms Warrior setting the standard right now in 9.0.5, which is not new. So if you're an Arms Warrior, you're still pretty happy about this. If not, even more happy. You just got more options. But yes, Arms Warrior is now S tier. Well, remained S tier. Assassination Rogue. This is an underdog specialization that has been on the rise, and I think now with changes to the Necrolord Covenant, I'm seeing a lot more Necrolord Rogue, and potentially some Venthyr Rogue as well. But for Assassination, it's a bit of a debate right now between Flagellation and Bone Spike. But with buffs to those covenants, Rogue in general just kind of got hit hard at the start, having Echoing Reprimand on the Kyrian Covenant nerfed, and it didn't have that big burst damage Covenant ability. But now its damage in Vendetta is really high, enormously high. The main problem with Assassination Rogue is that you're directly compared with Arms Warrior. It's always going to be, well, you could have just been a warrior, could have just been a monk, could have just been something else, right? This is an underdog spec that I would have put on a B tier, and I've kind of subdivided these into A and A plus and S to really try and get a distinct position on my opinion on their overall power, because when I just did clear S, A, B, C, almost all of them were ending up on A, and I was like, there are differences between some of these specializations. To me, Assassination has potential, a lot more potential than it did in the past, especially now since the Covenant buffs. So if you haven't switched to Venthyr or Necrolord, I would recommend it. Check out some Rogue streamers to get their opinions on which one is which. I don't play it personally, and I've seen a split between the two, so it's tough to call right now. But it's about a B plus, and A is where you're getting like exceptional. It's an exceptional spec. It has at least one composition that can push up into the rank 1 range, and I mean, I think Assassination has those compositions. But in terms of its direct comparisons to the ones that are in the A tier moving forward, I don't know yet if it's going to reach that point. It easily could. It easily could. Assassination, you should expect to be more of a dampening playstyle on Rogue. Running with Frost Mage is where I've seen a lot of success on it, and it's very similar to the Warrior, just attacking, doing damage and pressure throughout the fight, and that is a playstyle, and it does bring in Envenom for exceptional burst damage. I think its weaknesses lie in its own personal defense. You can be targeted down quite heavily on Assassination. You don't have the Subtlety Rogue playstyle of retreating, running away, ducking for cover, and then bursting down people when it's safe to do so, whereas Subtlety, I would say, is secure in its spot moving forward on the tier list. Assassination, for me, still has something to prove overall, but it is a lot better than it was. It's very close. That's why I say it's a B plus moving into the A right now. Enhancement Shaman, for me, this comes in at A, and that might come as a surprise because I think a lot of people think Enhancement Shaman is a really powerful spec at the moment, which it is. But the main reason it comes in at the A tier is because it's not a specialization that everyone is building on, right? You're not Boomkin Enhance, you're not playing Shadow Priest Enhance, you're really not playing anything other than Warrior Enhance. I have seen some Death Knight, and in a lot of cases, the Enhancement Shamans are resentful to their Death Knights. Why weren't you just a Warrior? So it is a good spec. It brings good burst damage, a good big burst healing. It has some weaknesses, which is also why I'd say it's A and not A plus, is that it runs out of mana, and that it lacks mobility, and it lacks personal defense, which is why it requires the synergy of Intervene from the Warrior and Spell Reflect and all the disruption that the Warrior provides to be able to survive and cover up its weaknesses. So when you run Warrior Enhancement Shaman, you will have success, and this will feel like a very powerful composition, if not one of the most powerful ladder compositions in the game. But as a standalone, I don't think that it has its own, it's not as powerful because it has distinct weaknesses. Feral Druid does not lack the mobility issue of Enhancement Shaman, does not lack the mana issue like the Enhancement Shaman. It brings tremendous burst damage. and it has more flexibility in my mind. You play with mages, warlocks, warriors. You have more options. So for me, it's an A plus. It's not coming into the S tier. It doesn't have mortal wounds. It doesn't have it's not as disruptive. And I think it's really Intervene that's kind of holding Arms Warrior above everything else in terms of melee DPS at the moment. Just 6 seconds of complete melee DPS redirection is a really powerful mechanic on such a low cooldown. So for me, Feral Druid as a ladder spec, you can play Feral again, Feral Mage, Feral Hunter. These are going to be really good compositions on the ladder, have a lot of success. It's A plus. It's above that exceptional point because it can be built into different frames and different strategies. Whereas Enhancement Shaman it's got its identity, and it's a really good identity, but with clear strengths and weaknesses and not a lot of flexibility. So it comes in slightly lower for me overall as a ladder specialization, but not by much. And within that scope of the comp it can play, it's directly comparable. Frost Death Knight has been proven tried and true at this point as a very powerful melee DPS at the moment. I should say in general the meta is shifting a little bit into a slower paced game. I believe you're going to see a lot of melee cleave and a lot of double caster, and your ability to kind of burst down double caster in your window before you get just CC'd and erased out of the game is very important at the moment, and Frost DK can achieve that. And it's already proven itself with the grip double blinding sleet, double Syndragosa stun, chill streak bounces, its synergy with Arms Warrior, Windwalker, Demon Hunter, another specialization we're about to talk about in terms of its uprise. But Frost Death Knight is very close in my mind to actually being an S tier specialization. It's mostly the Heartstop Delirium combination, reducing enemy cooldowns. It's just very powerful, unique mechanic to Frost Death Knight only. Incredibly frustrating and annoying on the other hand to face. Probably the most annoying thing in the game to ever face, and really not in a good way. But because you have that, it could almost be S tier. All it would really need in my mind is mortal wounds. If it had mortal wounds, you could pair Frost DK with almost anything, and I think it would be almost S tier. It would be S tier. So for me, it comes in at A plus. It's already got its solid identity. It's still remaining in a really good position after the changes. Fury Warrior, I'm sorry to say, I think is coming on the bottom. A clear distinction between the S, A, B, and C. The bottom. It's basically just an Arms Warrior that doesn't do as much damage, no mortal wounds, no unique flavor. It's just, that's the problem. No unique identity. It's just an Arms Warrior clone with no mortal strike. Visually, it has identity. Obviously, it's amazing wielding double two-handers. You're going to have a lot of fun in random battlegrounds, maybe Death Wish build with a couple healers and bursting people down for some really big crits. But when it comes to competitive ladder play, I have yet to see anybody really trying to make this work or able to actually make it work. And I think it's just because Arms Warrior is so prevalent at the moment and apparent that it's strong. But on top of that, Fury Warrior just doesn't have identity. It used to have the ability to remove slows, which was its identity. It could just spam Bloodthirst and remove slows on itself and get a lot of uptime, and that used to be its identity. But that was stripped away in Shadowlands from its honor talents, and now it's a flat basic melee from my view, and it's not as powerful as the other ones, while it's also lacking flavor. In terms of its actual mechanics, not its visual concept. Its visual concept is definitely unique, wielding two big two-handers, but performance-wise, I think it comes in at the bottom. Now, Demon Hunter is a specialization, much like the Assassination Rogue, that's showing a ton of potential. About to get into the A, maybe already existing in the A, but we're only a week in. I've seen it play with quite a diverse range of specs as well, with Shadow Priest, and then obviously the standard Frost Death Knights, and then Arms Warrior, and maybe even Windwalker. It's showing a lot of potential. To me, it could easily already be here in A tier, but because it's only a week in, I'm hesitant, so I'm putting B plus as the, like, this is about to be A tier, could actually be totally meta defining, has its own place, it's very durable, works well with Resto Druids, rotating Iron Bark and Blur as defensive cooldowns, works really well with Frost Death Knights to limit enemy mobility, stack them together, and the Unbound Chaos buff to your Fel Rush damage is doing insane damage, so you have what's needed to be successful in 3v3 now, in my mind, as a Demon Hunter, and now it's just a matter of time. Where is it going to fit in? Because I am starting to see it creep up more and more and more. So as a Demon Hunter player in 3v3, I think you have a lot more to look forward to. Haven't seen any Necrolord Demon Hunter. It's still basically Night Fae only, as we saw Necrolord Flames of Fodder buffed and reworked, but it's still maybe too awkward, not as consistent as the Hunt just being this you're dead button. But Havoc Demon Hunter has a lot of potential to get up there, whereas before it was like, we're just going to ignore it. Similarly to Assassination Rogue, it was like, not a warrior, but these two are definitely on the climb. So even though they're coming in here at the middle, the plus means they have the most potential to actually completely shake things up. And I'll update these tier lists as we go along, as I feel that it is necessary. But with as much time as I've been gotten to kind of see the game and play the game, this is where I would put them currently. Now, Outlaw Rogue, I think, comes in a similar spot. It's higher than Fury Warrior because you can still play things like Rogue Mage, and Rogue Mage will carry the specialization to a higher level in my mind than what Fury has available to it. However, it's very similar in a position as Fury, where it's just no unique identity. They gave Kidney Shot back. You used to have a ranged stun. That you've just got this kind of gimmick with your blind being 30-second cooldown faster, a faster cooldown blind, so you can blind a healer, they trinket blind them again when they don't have a trinket and win a game. It's a very cheesy, gimmicky build. Not having a ranged stun through their gun, their pistol stun, or the between the eyes stun, definitely lost flavor to the spec as being like, no, I feel dynamically different when I'm on Outlaw than Assassination or on Subtlety. It does walk a little bit of a middle line between the two in terms of control and burst, and it walked a better middle line when it had a range stun in my mind. You are, again, still receiving benefits from the Venthyr buffs and possibly Necrolord buffs. I've seen more Venthyr Outlaw Rogue, particularly Flagellation and Curse of the Dreadblades combined together. But I don't think you're showing potential to really get into the A tier categories. I think it's still going to be, why not play Assassin for dampening style? Why not play Sub for burst? And you're not really walking the middle line well enough to take either one's place, but you've got this cheesy gimmick that does make you competitive, which is why you come at B and not C, and you still have Rogue Mage as an option. Retribution Paladin, in my mind, probably the best A+ melee DPS here. You work exceptionally well with Arms Warrior. You may be one of the best partners other than Mage. In terms of the melee DPS, you're probably the best partner for a warrior at the moment. Having instant KO damage on Divine Toll and instant full heal on Word of Glory, I mean, where are you going to really go wrong here? And it brings more mobility than Enhancement, and it doesn't have the mana disadvantages that Enhancement has, and it has more flexibility. It can play with ranged classes. It can play with melee, whereas Enhancement's like, hey, any warriors? No, y'all playing with mages? You kind of like you're stuck with one type, whereas Ret does have that flexibility on top of a powerful kit, so it's obviously still at the top. But I do now think there is a distinct difference between Warrior and the rest of the melee DPS in particular, and because of Warrior's ability to go into a potential dampening meta, I think is a higher chance or highly likelihood. I'm seeing a lot more Shadow Priest Warrior, for example, than a lot of the other melee DPS. There's potential for Ret Paladins to struggle with Double Caster, whereas with Arms Warrior, I'm not anticipating that same type of struggle. Subtlety Rogue, it's much like Enhancement Shaman. It's got that one comp, it's got that Rogue Mage Priest, and you're going to do really well in it, but if those priests and mages got their eyes on other classes, you might have a tough time finding a group to push for the highest level. But within the realm of that Rogue Mage Priest comp, you do a ton of single target damage. There is a new builds coming in. It wasn't new at the time. It's still within the same scope with Shadowy Duel. You get someone's trinket, then you Shadowy Duel them and pop all your rogue cooldowns and try and kill them in one little burst window. I see this as a very common strategy now with Subtlety, and it can be very difficult to combat because during Shadowy Duel, there's not many spells that can interact with it, but there are, and it's area of effect spells. So if you have area of effect heals like Chain Harvest, or Dome from Priest to put down, and you counter the single target Shadowy Duel with these area of effect heals and damage reduction, you can sort of negate that strategy. But that strategy is already proven to be successful. I think Subtlety was already established as an A tier within the realm of that composition, but it's a hit and run playstyle, one dimensional. It's your only option, and because of that, I don't think it's an A+. It doesn't have flexibility. Now, Survival Hunter, this is another specialization that I think has potential. I'm putting it in at the bottom of the B+ at the moment because, again, you can play with ferals, but you're limited to that one composition. I think Assassination and Demon Hunter are more flexible than that. Maybe Survival should even be B tier. I think Beast Mastery Hunter is actually starting to see a lot more play with the Venthyr Covenant than even Marksman, and maybe potentially Survival we should put down here on B. The main reason that I don't want to put it on B is because I think within Jungle, at the top level, Jungle is a really good comp. It has a lot of weaknesses at the top end. Maybe B is fair place for Survival. You don't have flexibility. It's a very fun specialization. It's a unique specialization in terms of play style and feel. For certain, it's a high skill cap specialization, but performance-wise, which is the main purpose of this tier list, you are going to feel real restricted to only playing with Feral Druids and Priests. I've seen a couple Shadow Priest attempts, like Shadow Priest Hunter Paladin, but not to any avail that I've seen it after maybe one time seeing it. So you've only got one option when it comes to 3v3, and even at the highest level, that Jungle will have good matchups, but then really awful matchups. So it's kind of hit or miss, very limited. I think it's fair. It's better than Outlaw, and it's like could be like a B plus minus or something like that. I think these specs are more going to be meta defining, which is why Survival comes a little lower than Survival is. Now, Unholy Death Knight, This is a specialization that competes directly with Frost. The difference used to be that Frost was this cleave spec, anti double melee, anti two target cleave, and Unholy was the sustained single target spec. But now Frost does good sustained single target and has the bonus of being really good at AoE. So why would you bring Unholy? To me, Unholy received some buffs and changes to it, which has increased its potential. I've seen it more played with things like Demon Hunter or Arms Warrior, these types of melee cleaves, maybe a couple Shadow Priest Unholy Death Knight. To me, what Unholy Death Knight really needs to get an A tier spot is its unique identity, Necrotic Strike, buffed further. This mechanic that absorbs incoming healing. So if you crowd control the healing output of the other team and then stack up a bunch of Necrotic, they're pressured to try and heal through that before they can start sustaining their health bar. That used to be the main vibe when you fought an Unholy Death Knight. That's what you thought. That's what you're feeling the pressure of in the game. And you just don't. And it could also come to serve as a good counter to all of the off healing and hybrid healing and absorbs available in the game to sort of create another meta within the meta wheel of options. So it's very close. It has potential. I've seen more success with it now in the ladder, but I think Frost still trumps it. So it's more significant of a gap between Frost and Unholy in terms of its ladder performance. But this is like the potential almost moving in here could actually be meta defining. Not enough time, but I think Unholy is more likely to fall down to B than to continue up to A. Now, Windwalker Monk, the final melee DPS, is one that I ranked on S tier in previous tier lists, but I think now it's more clearly A. It's probably one of the best, it's tied with Ret in terms of options. You still see a lot of Windwalker Mage. I think that Windwalker is going to start to struggle with a lot of the Frost Death Knight melee cleaves, kind of bursting it down, and potentially struggle with Double Caster. If Double Caster ends up being more of the meta, I think Arms Warrior's kit maybe is more well equipped for that situation, but it's still a solid spec. Even despite the changes to Storm, Earth, and Fire. Some monks have opted to try Serenity, not a lot of them, but Storm, Earth, and Fire still does a lot of damage. Zwen still does a lot of damage, even though you can crowd control it through more means. It can generally be difficult to even target Zwen because there's just so many pets out other than like a area of effect root. But it still has its niche, again, with Mage Windwalker, Death Knight Windwalker, still a really good specialization. But I think there is now a clear marker between Warrior and Monk, but it's not by much, right? It's not an S to an A. It's somewhere in between. These are like the in-betweens. And I think it's because Warrior is more flexible, ultimately. When you go like Warrior Mage, Monk Mage could be about as good. What about Warrior Boomkin? Oh, Monk Boomkin could be pretty good. Shadow Priest Warrior, Monk Shadow Priest. You don't see a lot of Monk Shadow Priest. It starts falling off the more specs you list down, like Ret Warrior. Well, Monk Ret, not that good. Warrior can just like have its pick and choice of everything, which I think is another reason that put it up here. But I think Intervene more particularly, having a very low cooldown ability to redirect all physical damage to yourself, very powerful mechanic. But might not be as useful, although then you go Overwatch Honor Talent, then Spell Reflex, and then it becomes a spellcaster counter as well. So to me, it's in its own tier at the moment, and this is how I would lay out the specializations for 9.0.5, having given the changes. So let me know what you think. Do you agree with my assessment of the specializations moving forward? Are you excited to try some of these specializations that are on the rise? What comps are you going to be looking for, other than the ones that I've already recommended? Maybe I want this to be a good resource. So let me know in the comments down below if you think I'm totally off base with any of this in my assessment, because I want this to be a good resource for people to come to and then be like, all right, what's looking like the meta? I want to try and pick up a team and try pushing the ladder, and what's going to give me the best odds. It's the main purpose of the video. So definitely call me out if you think anything here is just totally coming out of nowhere or biased, because I don't want it to be. And other than that, thank you for watching the video. You liked it, thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. It just lets you know when these updates go live. So if you want to stay in the know and the now of World of Warcraft PvP, this is the place to be. So you just hit that subscribe button and you don't get charged. It's just free. It just gives you notification. I'll have videos linked here as well if you want to check out other videos that I've made. I've got a ton of videos to check out, tons of content to digest. I've completely deep dive Shadowlands, and I'm constantly going into every patch and every upcoming PTR as well. I'm looking to create TBC content as well as in the future for Arena and PvP specifically. So if you're interested in that, those will be running parallel with each other. And if you want to watch me live, twitch.tv/Supatease, where I'll be playing currently Priest and Druid a lot. However, I will be expanding into more alts moving forward into the future as well. Looking to play everything by the end of the expansion. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.